Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Up to date, it's another beautiful steam locomotive from Bachmann. So I really love 440 steam locomotives. It's been my favourite wheel configuration for a long time now. But we haven't looked at a 440 steamer for a long time on this channel together in a review, so I thought it was high time we did another. So today's loco is this. This is the Bachmann D11 locomotive. And this thing really is a 440 of a different colour, not just because it's in the Great Central Green livery, which is very unusual in model form. Very few locos carry this livery, but also because this really is a huge beast of a 440 locomotive. Even compared to the schools class, in my eyes, this loco looks like a real brute. Now I can see some people not really liking this locomotive because obviously it is quite a brutish look, and particularly in the BR black liveries and such, this can look very severe indeed. But I'm going to go ahead and say in the Great Central Green here, it really does look quite an elegant loco, so I'm really looking forward to revisiting this loco with you today. So the current price for this locomotive, or for a model of this class from Bachmann, is £189.95 at the moment, and from the retailers these can be picked up for around about £160 to £170, oftentimes a little bit higher. And if you are interested in picking one of these up, I'll include an affiliate link down in the description for you. For now though, we're going to take a look at this loco. We'll find out whether it's worth that money, quite expensive of course, and also we'll enjoy what is a very beautiful loco. So come with me, let's do this. Okay, the Bachmann D11. So in terms of liveries, you haven't got a massive choice with this class, but there are one or two really lovely options. So obviously right here I've got the Great Central Green, so this is the pre-grouping variety. There is at least one post-grouping version of this in the L&ER lined black, which looks lovely with the lining, and there's also a BR black offering as well, which also has some nice lining on the boiler, and I've also got one of those, so I'll be able to show you that later on. But today we're looking at Mons. It is a named locomotive in the Great Central Green. Let me show the end of the box to show you exactly which version I've got here. So this is 31-147. It's a class D11/1, so that indicates that this is the first design of D11. It was changed and modified over the years. And it's number 501 Mons, like I say, in the GCR green. And if you want to chip these locos, they take a 21-pin DCC decoder. Let me show you the back of the box then, because there is a brief history of the class, although there's a fair few paragraphs of it there, so pause and read that if you're interested, although I will give you a potted history in just a second. But for now then, let's get this beauty out, and I will rediscover what this loco is like. The major thing I remember about this class is heavy. These are super heavy locos because of their size. Obviously, there have been plenty of opportunities for Bachmann to bump the weight up, and they certainly haven't missed those opportunities from what I remember. I don't think I've ever weighed one of these on the scales before, but I'll certainly be interested to learn what the weight is. Anyway, so there's the loco. Yeah, it's incredibly front heavy, this pack. I do remember this being a heavy loco. Right, let's take a look at some of the paperwork then. So we've first of all got the D11 Director 440 locomotive diagram. This does give away quite a lot about the way these locos work. So you've got the slightly old-fashioned Bachmann motor. Not sure whether that's a 3 or a 5 pole. I have a feeling it might be a 3, but we'll have to see. Quite a lot of gearing involved here. It does look as though both of the loco's driving axles are driven, which again is a slight overcomplication, isn't it? But maybe that won't be the case. Sometimes Bachmann do take out the driving gears from one of the axles. They did that with the Midland compound. I can't remember whether that's the case on this, so we'll have to find out. But either way, yeah, it was quite a good exploded diagram there. And then on the back, you've got a bit more information. So running in all the standard stuff, you've got the location of the loco and tender body screws. You've got the location of the accessory add-on part, shows you where at least some of those go, in what must be the most poorly reproduced diagram I think I've ever seen. Good luck deciphering that. And then of course you've got the location of the DCC socket, which is in the tender, as is fairly standard. So all of that looks pretty good. I think this is just about the collector's club, so we'll put that to one side. And let's take a look and see what you get with this loco. Very expensive these, but I do remember that they are pretty high quality, and already I can see a really high quality feature looking at me from inside the box right there. Let's take these out and see. Now this is quite impressive. So right on the top, first of all, we have not only etched number plates, which are obviously made of metal and look fantastic, but you've got what look like little etched builder's plates, a secondary number plate for elsewhere on the loco somewhere, maybe on the back of the tender, I don't know. And then you've also got the Mons nameplates as well. Fantastic inclusion. They do look so much better than the tampo printed ones if you can be bothered to fit them. And then in the detail pack, there are quite a lot of accessories. So we've got brake rigging, painted red guard irons, you have fireman's tools, so there's shovels and pokers and all that good stuff. That's a really nice inclusion. We've got metal moving screw link couplings there, all sorts of other little details. We've got lamps by the looks of it, buffer beam detailing, quite a lot for you to fit if you want to. Does of course mean though that there is quite a lot that is not fitted to the model as standard. Brake rigging, I guess that is usually fitted these days. But yeah, fair enough, although as always it does call the very high cost of these models into question a little bit. But that's easy to forget when you see how beautiful this thing looks. So this is a Bachmann loco from a few years ago. I would say the finish on the boiler isn't quite as good as some of Bachmann's more modern stuff. It does have a bit more of a plasticky finish on it than you'd probably expect to see from Bachmann these days. But the quality of the decoration itself looks to be great, doesn't it? So let's have a close look at this. Okay, so yeah, what an absolutely fantastic looking loco this is. And isn't the Great Central Green a beautiful, beautiful livery? Such a lot of complexity to this, loads and loads of lining, and a great palette of colours as well. I do love the way this looks. The loco is, of course, really, really heavy. All of this lower body, so the running plate and such, that is all made of heavy metal. It's all die-cast, and that really, really does show through in the loco's weight. I will weigh this for you in just a second and let you know what it weighs, but it's a lot, definitely a lot for a loco of this size. And of course, as a result, no traction tyres in sight because the loco just simply does not need them. Absolutely not. So there it is. What a lovely, lovely loco. I will show you this in much more detail in just a second. But first of all, here's a little bit of history on the class in real life. The D11 has gone by many different names and classifications throughout its lifetime. They were initially known as the Class 11F on the Great Central Railway, or the GCR. That's where they were first introduced. They're also known as the Improved Director class. They had that name, or of course, as we know them now, the D11. And D11 was the classification that these locos received from the LNER in 1923. So actually looking at this Great Central version, it's wrong to call it a D11 unless we're considering it in a preservation livery or something, which we're not because this loco was not preserved. Anyway, that's all a bit of pedantry, isn't it, really? The D11 design does then predate the 1923 grouping, but only by a couple of years, as the class was actually introduced in 1919 to the design of John G. Robinson. So the loco is pre-grouping, but only just. And some of the class were actually produced after grouping, so certain members of the class are post-grouping. 35 of these elegant two-cylinder 440s were produced in two different varieties. You've got this one, the D11/1, which was the original Great Central design, and then the slightly later D11-2, which featured more or less the same design, but it was slightly reduced in size. Nothing major here, just smaller boiler mountings and such, in order to conform to the loading gauge up in Scotland. The class was used for express work for most of their lives, and they did remain in service even into the 1940s and the 1950s, hauling expresses at that point between Manchester and Liverpool, their large 6'9" driving wheels affording them the speed that they needed in order to excel in such duties, although it did make them unsuitable for freight work. Withdrawal took place between 1958 and 1962, and now, very sadly, only one example remains, and that is the 6th example built, number 506, and it is part of the National Collection as a static display. So there she is up close and personal for you then, Bachmann's D11 Mons, and just feast your eyes on this thing. This is a 440 and what a beast it is. Absolutely beautiful, of course, and we'll talk about all the detail and the decoration in just a second, but in terms of sheer weight, this loco is very impressive. It weighs in at 361 grams, okay, that's just a number, but get this, that is more than the Bachmann ROD 280 and its tender. A 280 is lighter than a 440, unbelievable. It's more than the Hornby B12, which is a 460 with a die-cast boiler. It's even more than Helgen's Great Western railcar. This is a very, very heavy locomotive. It's got to be the heaviest 440 I've got in my collection. In terms of quality, it's really well put together. Overall, on the whole, I would say the quality of this loco is high. Not perfect though, unfortunately. There are one or two scuffs in the decoration on the splashes, as you can see. One or two slight hiccups. You have got the odd bit of glue here and there. There's a piece around the cab. If you're looking for it, you will spot one or two bits of stray glue. And there is a little bit of flashing visible on certain parts, such as the reversing rod here, which is a tiny bit distracting. And these separately fitted parts in the boiler look very, very irregular, don't they? I'm not entirely sure why these needed to be separately fitted. I would have just made these part of the moulding personally, but maybe there's a reason why a protruding part there would be out of the question. I don't know, but they sure do look a little messy. So not 100% perfect by any means, but on the whole, a very, very high quality loco, which looks fantastic. And speaking of the looks, let's take a closer look at some of the decoration. Yeah, the finish on the boiler isn't bad. I mean, yes, we have seen better looking finishes these days from Bachmann, but it's not terrible. It's not completely matte or anything. And the lining is certainly high quality, as you can see. It looks very good along the boiler there. And there is a lot of lining on this loco. As you can see, the running plate is fully lined, as are all the steps and the splashes and such attached to it. Well, this part really isn't a splasher, is it? This just allows the coupling rods space to move and such. But the splasher behind that, as you can see, with the Tampo printed Mons nameplate, and all of that gold lining really does look very elegant, doesn't it? Very nicely done. And of course the frames of the locomotive, they're lined as well, and you have got a tiny little builder's plate printed down there, and I'm pretty sure we have an etched version of this plate in that detail bag so that you could fit that if you wanted to. You've got pipework painted onto there very, very precisely, as you can see. Almost looks separately fitted, doesn't it, that pipework, but I think it is just printed on. The side of the cab looks great as well. Again, you've got Tampo printed number plates there, but you can put the etched ones over the top if you'd like. Lots of lining on the side of the cab. You've got the high shine chrome handrail as well, and also the separately fitted glazing parts, which also have lining around them. That looks lovely. Well, we've touched on the high shine chrome handrails, so I'll show you the main one across the main body of the loco. Yeah, it's very effective, isn't it? That doesn't work with all liveries, and of course not all locos had high shine chrome handrails, but it certainly does suit the GCR green in my opinion, which is wonderful. The smokebox door is also decorated in a similar way. You've got the high shine chrome handrail on there, and also the separately fitted, very nicely produced smokebox handle. And get a load of this. We do have, it's quite a stiff one, but it is an opening smokebox door. If I just demonstrate this, you can open it up and there is even detail inside the smoke box. Now, Bachmann's latest sort of 200, 220 pound steam locomotives, far more expensive locomotives than this, have not had that feature. And to me, I love this feature, right? Because you can roll this locomotive into the workshop or whatever, can't you? And you can open the smoke box and you can have little figurines working inside the loco, and then perhaps the next day it's back on the layout again running. Yeah, it's just another little subtle modelling opportunity, isn't it? Which a simple detail like that can offer you. Anyway, carrying on with the loco, you've got a nicely produced buffer beam with these are metal buffers. They do have a bit of a plastic finish to them because they've been painted, but they are metal and they're also sprung, as you can see. And of course there is a wealth of extra detail that you can add to these buffer beams if you want to. Let's take a look at the wheels. Each wheel is very carefully painted and also lined. You've got 3 different bits of banding on these front bogie wheels, as you can see. and the result is a very, very elegant looking wheel indeed. And also the drivers are nicely produced as well, with similarly good looking lining. Some of the details that I really like include the depiction of the valve gear between the frames. Not a huge amount going on here, of course, but there is enough to catch the eye and just bring a bit of extra realism to the model. And this is also painted as well with a couple of different colours. You've got the chrome painted parts and also a bit painted into the red down there as well, which is wonderful. You also have separately fitted metal safety valves. They look so much better than plastic ones, as I always say, but I think it's worth saying because they do look a lot better. And the whistle here is very interesting. Now, this doesn't look like a metal whistle, but to me this looks like a plastic whistle or possibly a metal one, which has been electroplated, a little bit like the dome on some Dapple locos, if you will. And I've got to say, the result there is quite effective, isn't it? That does not look bad at all, and it certainly looks better than regular metallic paint on a whistle like that. So overall, I'm quite impressed with that. The front of the cab is nicely detailed as well, with more lining and paintwork around the windows. And as always, I have saved the best part of the model until last, and that is, of course, the cab. Now, this is a very, very high-spec cab. Even down to the wood planking on the floor, which is nicely produced. There is the cream-coloured paint applied to the walls and the roof of the inside of the cab, and of course a whole wealth of different pipework, much of which looks as though it's separately fitted, obviously separately painted, very effective looking water gauges, and quite a bit of different furniture inside there as well. It really is a great looking cab, that. And of course there are separately fitted handrails and such around the cab. And then meeting the cab from the other side, you do have a metal tender foreplate, which is quite short though, and it's nowhere near going to meet the loco under normal operation. The loco to tender coupling is a little bit questionable really, because I mean you can push them together and then they do look quite realistic, but obviously when the loco is running there's going to be tension between the two, so they're going to be pulled apart like that, and it doesn't look quite as good. So a more modern Bachmann loco would probably be a bit more refined in that area, but overall I don't think refinement of this model is a problem at all, is it? So let's take a look at the tender. This is a very elegant looking tender. Again, the decoration really is second to none, and I just love, like I said earlier on, the colour palette of the Great Central livery. You've got the underframe, which is painted into a very sort of deep red, and it's got sort of orange lining on it, I would say, which surrounds the axle boxes and the springs and such. It's quite an unusual but very elegant effect, I would say. And then you've got the main body in the Great Central green, complete with the Great Central lettering and a whole ton of different lining. Look at all of the colours used in the paintwork on the tender. It's really, really very impressive. Well worth paying a little bit extra, I think, to get a livery like this. There are quite a few different separately fitted parts on the tender, as you can see, which just bring the level of detail way up. Looks fantastic. You've got a nice coal load, which is a metal piece, I believe, quite on the glossy side, but not in a particularly unrealistic way, I would say. And then around the back, you've got more of those high shine chrome handrails. You've got the number on the back of the tender of some sort. Again, this loco did come, I think at least, with an extra version of that plate, which you can stick over if you want, but obviously I haven't done that. And then down on the buffer beam, it's nicely painted. You've got the running number printed onto there. You've got more separately painted buffers, which are sprung yet again, as you can see. Little lamp irons on the lower body, and quite a short NEM coupling pre-fitted to the back of the tender. And of course there is one on the front of the loco as well. So there you have it, the Bachmann D11. It really is something quite special, isn't it? It's a really, really lovely looking loco. Beautifully painted on the whole. I have had this loco for a few years, and as you can see, it's still in one piece. Nothing looks tired or bedraggled, nothing's dropped off it. So it is a good quality loco where that's concerned. And of course, the level of detail is fantastic as well. Some really great details on this. And while it is quite an expensive loco, I would say 189 or 160 to 170 pounds is still a lot of money for a loco like this. It's certainly more reasonable than some of Bachmann's most recent releases, which have been up and above £200 in many cases. So overall, yeah, this is a really, really lovely loco. From a visual point of view, I can highly recommend it. But now we're going to take a look at the mechanism and, of course, more importantly, the performance, and we'll find out how this loco handles itself on the track. So there she is, the D11 down onto the track, and isn't this just a fantastic looking loco? I keep forgetting that this is a 440. The size of it would not be uncommon as a 460, let alone a 440. So yeah, it's got real presence on the track, hasn't it? Mechanically then, it's okay. It's very much the same story as with most Bachmann steam locomotives. The mechanism here is definitely adequate, but it's not outstanding by any means. So pickups are okay, but not the greatest. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 wheels touching the track, but only 8 of those wheels have pickups, which isn't a great number really. You've got wiper pickups on the loco driving wheels, and then the classic Bachmann axle tender pickups, 4 of those, not even all 6. But I would say it's just about alright in order to get reliable running. You have got the same old tender to loco coupling situation, which I've gone on about quite a lot over the last few reviews, so you know the deal. Wires stretching to the middle of the tender, which makes no sense, insecure drawbar, yada yada yada, should really be fixed on all of Bachmann's locos. That's my particular opinion. Anyway, removing the base keeper plate isn't too bad, just a few screws. It is hardwired, no spring-loaded contacts here, but the wires go to the tender and not into the loco chassis, so you can lift the base away for access and maintenance and lubrication, that sort of thing. As you can see, we do have proper bearings on the driving wheels, which is a good quality feature. And as you can also see, both of the driving wheels on the loco are driven with gears. We're not just relying on the coupling rods, which of course does mean that there are a lot of gears in this loco, which could potentially add quite a bit to the friction of the system. Now the chassis is surprisingly tiny. The chassis does not include the front bogie or anything, that is fitted to the body. So you have just literally got this very neat, tidy, compact chassis. It does unfortunately just have a 3-pole motor though. Again, this is an expensive loco. A 5-pole motor would definitely have served this loco better. The worm drive is covered by a very large cap, and I was hoping for a flywheel, but unfortunately no, it's just a red herring. There is no flywheel either, so that's not the best. The gauging isn't too bad though, 14.1, so quite a bit under gauge, but no more so than other locos, and as always that should allow the loco to handle curves okay. So I suppose the major thing is the 3-pole motor. I'm not a big fan of the standard typical Bachmann 3-pole motor. Generally they don't allow locos to do a great crawl, but whether or not that is the case with this, I can't remember. Now obviously I've had this loco for a few years in my collection. I've had it apart quite a few times for servicing, so there was no point filming the performance first before showing you the mechanism. So we're going to do this live. We're going to do this right now. Let's see if the loco still works. It did last time I tried it. Yeah, as you can see, nice and smooth. Of course, it has already been run in fully. It's been lubricated a couple of times over the small number of years that I've had it, so I'm confident that it's at its peak performance-wise. Let's hit it with 50% speed. So as you can see, that is quite sensible. I mean, after those coreless Bachmann releases, the 812 and the Precedent, that seems remarkably sensible in its speed, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not racing too fast, so the gearing is obviously quite good. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's too unreasonable, which gives me some hope that this will be a good crawler. Let's have a look. I'm easing it up very gently, so we can get a crawl out of it. There you go, so it's going. So it is slow, but as you can see, it's moving in sudden jerky motions. It's called cogging. And that's what you get with 3-pole motors, and 5-pole motors generally do a lot less cogging. But that's not bad. I mean, that is acceptable. We've seen better, but it's all right. And I'm still turning it up, and as you can see, it's getting smoother and smoother, to the point where about here I would say it's no longer cogging. Let's try it in reverse. Yeah, okay, so not dreadfully smooth at that speed, but at the higher speeds, say here, very nice and smooth. It's a good runner overall, considering it's got a 3-pole motor without a flywheel, and considering it's a little bit light on pickups, I would say this performance is adequate. Yeah, we've certainly seen worse. So I'm really pleased with this. I mean, when this version of the model first came out, it was ludicrously expensive. But now, compared with other locos on the market, it's actually looking a lot more reasonable. And given the fact that it looks so fantastic and it runs quite decently, I would say the value for money here is okay. It's not as bad as it sounds. Yeah, that's marvellous. And of course, the tractive effort of this model is wonderful as well. It's really quite good given the amount of weight. Now, bear in mind, this is a 440, right? So we're used to pretty low tractive efforts. This one's got 0.26 newtons, which is the equivalent to about 18 coaches on straight and level track. Now, that is a lot more than most of the 440s in my collection that have no traction tyres. Obviously, with rubber tyres, they haul more, but that's cheating and they're horrid things. So even the pulling power is really quite impressive. And so I've done the unthinkable and I've set up 7 LNER teak coaches. That's quite a lot of coaches for a 440 without traction tyres, albeit a massively large, looks like it's on steroids 440, but a 440 nonetheless. So let's see if she can haul them up Gordon's Hill. Now, I'm not sure about this now, but we're going to find out. Here we go. Okay, see if I can meet the coaches steadily. Sort of. Crashed into them a little bit, and I killed the speed at just the last second. All right, go on then, let's find out how she looks with a rake of teaks. Seems like a long time since I've looked at this loco in detail. I feel bad that I've neglected it, okay? Well, it's obviously noticed that these coaches aren't fully prototypical. Well, I'm sorry, you've got no choice. Let's make sure I've coupled them properly then. To be fair, it is the Hornby coach that has got the issue with the coupling here and not the loco. These coaches have the large sort of D-type tension locks, and so they're not 100% compatible, but I think we should be all right with that now. All right, take 2. Come on, director, let's have it. Just less than 50%, I think looks good. Yeah, nice express speed, perfect. Okay, so it certainly does look very, very elegant indeed, doesn't it, with teaks. Man, that's a lovely loco. And I did promise that I would show the BR Black version of this model at some point in today's video, so it makes sense to run it on the middle line. So this is ED Ochiltree, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but here it comes. I think personally, I do think this still looks elegant in the black, but I do think these look best in the greens. If you ask me, that's my personal opinion. But it certainly is a very, very different looking loco in the black. If you ask me, it totally transforms it, doesn't it? So let's get this going. And then on the inside line, I've been on about the size of this 440 all day, so I thought I would run the largest of them all, the largest of all 440s, the schools class. Now, if you ask me, the D11 looks larger than the schools class. It's just a much bigger, chunkier looking loco, but the schools class loco was the largest and most powerful class of 440. It's much newer as well than the D11, so it made sense to run that one. But I've got lots of other 440s in the sidings, so see which ones you can spot, and see if you can comment down below with the odd one out, because there is one. There goes Edie. And here comes Mons. Let's see how she handles the coaches up the incline. Like a powerhouse is the answer. 6 coaches. That's crazy. Look at that, no wheel slip. And the torque of the loco is pretty good. It doesn't slow down much around the second radius, even at the slower speeds. So overall, I think you can consider me pretty impressed. I do think that this is an expensive loco. It perhaps costs a little bit more than it ought to. But then again, in terms of the quality and the detail and the performance, they're all good, right? So to an extent, you do get what you pay for, which is more than can be said for a worryingly high proportion of locos available these days. So it does get my seal of approval. Overall, while it's not perfect, and there are ways that it could have easily been improved, it's a great, great loco, and it's far from the worst value for money item in Bachmann's catalogue. Far from it. I think there's been an earthquake. Sorry about that, Ernie. Let's get you back where you belong, underneath the hose of the water tower there. Let's have some ratings then for Bachmann's very, very beautiful D11 or D11/1 or Improved Director, whatever you want to call it. Level of detail then for me has to be 5-star. So let's unpack this as to why. So, amazing decoration, tons of lining, all of it done very, very nicely, fantastic. It's got some awesome details such as the metal safety valves, the cab, the opening smoke box door, the valve gear between the frames, absolutely wonderful. The only thing it doesn't have that more modern locos have is a firebox flicker, you know, LEDs in the firebox, but that to me is not too much of a detraction, and that is reflected in the price, certainly. Performance then, I've given 4-star. Overall performance is great, decent amount of torque in the mechanism, holds the track very nicely, it runs nice and smoothly. The crawl at the low end isn't the greatest in the world. It does cog a little bit and it's not got great control at the low speed. I think it just needed a 5-pole motor to be able to do that. But the gearing's good, the speed seems reasonable. Overall, good performance, I would say. Pulling power is exceptionally good for a 440. This had a pulling force of 0.26 newtons, which is around 18 coaches. This is way more than most 440s. I mean, the Dapol D-Class, for instance, without its traction tyres, had a tractive effort of 0.14 newtons. So this thing is nearly double. Yeah, very, very good pulling power, and it was absolutely worth putting all of that weight into this loco. Mechanism, I think this is the weakest aspect of the loco. It's not terrible by any means, but it's very outdated by most standards. So yes, it's got the proper bearings on the axles, that's great, but everything else is just adequate, I would say. So pickups, you've got 4 pickups per rail. That's kind of adequate, isn't it? That's all the loco driving wheels and 2/3 of the loco tender wheels. Maybe a few more pickups would be nice. The loco to tender drawbar, not the greatest. And then you've got the 3-pole motor with the lack of flywheel. So some improvements would have been great on this mechanism, but overall it's adequate, I would say. Quality then is very close to 5-star for me. Generally, this is a well-built loco. It's been assembled very carefully, decorated carefully, and there's so much metal on board and so much weight, you can't deny that this is a high-quality loco. But I did find 1 or 2 hiccups in the decoration and also 1 or 2 glue marks visible and such. A few of the parts not the highest quality, flashing here and there. So that is stopping me from giving that the full 5-star on quality, but overall this is a good quality loco. Value then, at an RRP of £189.95 and a retailer price in the region of £160 to £170, I think this is just okay. Are there far worse value models out there on the market these days? Absolutely. This is by no means the worst value model on the market. Do I really think it's worth £189.95 or £170? No, not quite. I reckon this model could have been a little bit better for that money. But overall, it's a great looking model, very well detailed, very high quality. To an extent, I can understand paying quite a lot for this. Overall then, that is a very good score actually of 8.23 out of 10. Let's pop that into the logbook, and it is indeed first place above the Precedent. Now the Precedent in many ways was a better loco than this, but then again this much larger, much heavier and equally detailed loco really is £30 to £45 cheaper, and I do think the extra value for money there makes this a better purchase. So there you have it, top 3 locos in the logbook. I think we need to try some locos from a few other manufacturers besides Bachmann, otherwise they're going to dominate this year. To be honest folks, I have really enjoyed this. I had forgotten how fantastic this loco was. I think it's been around 3 years since I last reviewed this, and it is shameful, but because my collection is so large, even if I run a lot of locos every week, there are going to be locos that don't get run very often. Sometimes months or even years go by without me running them. And I don't know why, but this is one of those locos. And rediscovering it today has reminded me what a terrible tragedy that is. So I'm going to have to run it a little bit more often. But in a way, it has been like discovering this loco for the first time, because there's so much about it that I'd forgotten about. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful loco. If you're in the market for a pre-grouping 440, Northern Region, Great Central, or later LNER or BR, then this is a sound purchase. And if you can get it for a decent price at a retailer, then even better. Yeah, highly recommend it. Really, really lovely. So well done Bachmann. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to comment down below and let me know what you thought about it. And I will see you very soon for some more videos. Alright, thanks for tuning in folks. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers everybody.